Good morning, this is Pixie doing another video. So OMAD fail, I guess. It's not too bad. What's happened is over the festive break I got on my scales at this client's, and I haven't been weighing myself for months, and I realised I'd gone up a stone. I thought, what? I've gone up a stone? I'm 18 stone when I was 17 before. But I was looking at things that's happened. Well, there's been given lots of food available, so I've had things like mince pies and stuff. So I have to be aware there's a certain sensitivity of food, which helps to do with like your health and food education, because you start learning better from your experiences. One, I don't seem to have any kind of, I guess I wouldn't say I'm greedy, but I don't see the point in snacking on sweets and things. If I start doing that, I end up devouring the contents of what I'm having. Because just if you start yourself your hunger off, then it's kind of like you switched a gear. Your body's going, right, we'll eat now. And so I just end up eating all these sweets or whatever, and then I think, well, I need to have a meal, and then I might go eat something else on top of that, and then you end up overeating because you've had all this sugar. See, the sugar will stimulate your body, your insulin levels, but it won't necessarily cut off your hunger levels. And there was some stuff about taking in high sugars. Basically, you can short circuit the associated feeling you'll have when you eat something and you feel like, oh, I'm full, I don't need to eat anymore. You can short circuit that by overindulging in a short space of time, possibly. It depends. If you've got a disciplined restriction, then you're creating your own. You're controlling that yourself, being associated, rather than if you're waiting for your body to do it, like you say, well, I'll just eat this, I'm not eating anything else, and then that's that. So you kind of disciplined yourself. Go this bump. So it just means a bit more stricter food play, we should say. If you're planning around your diet, food play, we like that. Not like food fights, food just playing with food, what you're eating. So I did a bit of carnivore stuff, and maybe I'll have a relook at that, or I like to call it meatarianism. It could be that the density of what I'm eating is so high that I basically need to eat. My portion sizes need to be adjusted. That might be the issue. It's the calorie in, and I hate to say calories out, because the only way calories come out is when you go to the toilet, and who knows what's coming out there. But I know it's suggesting how much you use, what you're using, what the amount you're using against the amount coming in. It doesn't actually work like that. It's not quite the same. It's a bit like sticking fuel in the car. I'm burning the fuel, but if I don't use the fuel, the difference is the car's not going to turn into an alternative fuel source and store it on around the engine. But it will do. Other things to look out for is sometimes you get indigestion. I had some indigestion today, and it felt like a pain in my heart, and I thought, oh my god. But it was just indigestion. Yeah, I mean, after I had something to eat this morning, that's why I'm quite jolly at the moment. I've had caffeine, I've had a coffee. That seemed to give me a load of dopamine. I felt the buzz from it, and so I thought, well, that's not necessarily a good thing. It means I'm blooming addicted. Or that my sensitivity's dropped down, which is great. The problem I encountered with sports drinks, they're just evil things. They said I come across this video and basically told me it's like the strength of cocaine. And the other issue it has is that the addiction can last for over 12 weeks. So, you know, if you're going to give up a drink, you have to go over 2 months. But then it's the same with cigarettes, it's the same with alcohol. You know, you're giving it up for a week, or giving up for, say, 48 hours isn't long enough. Well, that's not very good, is it? You're going to move. She half drove in the road and expected me to stop for her. It's what you call feminist rudeness. I don't know what it is. I think she's assuming because she's a girl, and this is not me being sexist, but she knows that I'm not going to be aggressive towards a woman, so she's taken advantage of that situation, and she's done something that's a bit stupid, like just stepping down the road. You sometimes get that with people. They run into the road and then they slowly walk across the road, so you still got to brake heavily. They might as well have just stepped out, walked into the road slowly, because they're still in the way. So there's no point half running and stop. Basically, you run and say I'm sorry, but then you did it anyway. So it's like you're not sorry. So that kind of like men and women do that. People that think they're hip do that. They walk out on the phone they walk out on the road with the phone and look at the phone and pretend you don't exist. So it's like a robot. You might as well just run this robot over because it doesn't care. It doesn't care what you are. But that's modern society's erosion, socialism. People fear of interacting. They need more child play. We need more adult play with groups. I did think about like a yoga group. I did think for heartful meditation, and you get like a mothers and toddlers group, but you swap each other's children around. So you give each other's child a hug, and the idea is that your kind of auric field is soothing to the child, and it also makes the child more interactive with other people. It's like you see love in other people. We put in the filters and the protection so we don't show emotion externally. It's like you're going to be weak. But actually, if you're strong, you show the emotion, but you're able to knock people back. You say, "What, really? I don't think so," or whatever. However you want to speak to it. And that's like more of a feminist. It might be a bloke who just go and walk off. Who knows? But maybe I throw the word feminist. It's not. It's like a female energy, and then there's this female masculine type energy, and then there's a masculine type female energy. Like somebody that's say maybe you might get from somebody who's gay. You might have that kind of. They're very talkative, but they understand how to be. They can be masculine as well, but then they've got an edge. They've got sort of feminine qualities in there as well. And then you've got the pure male who's maybe over masculinized and only follows certain trends to look a certain way. He's afraid, he's insecure about not being perceived as a male. In the same way, some women might be insecure about not being considered female enough and having certain rights as a female in the same way as rights as a male. The problem when you talk about gender and sex and and all them sorts of things is that you're going to offend someone because someone's going to have a different view. Because sociology, everyone chips into that. It's like religion, isn't it? You could start saying this religion's better than another, or this one's got pros. Then people will be looking, no, it's not compared to what I believe in, and then yada yada and whatever. It just go crazy, really. So crikey, I got my feminine part of my brain's quite active at the moment. I'm seen by my hand movements. It's a bit unusual. I've got a more female characters come into my body and focus this energy. So what else have I learned? If you're going to drink alcohol, you're going to have strong coffees, you're going to have tea, best time to have it is around food. Because drugs and food work great together, because food is drugs. So things like coffee, where your body flushing out vitamins, or it's flushing out the toxins in there. If you've got food coming in, so you're balancing it out. So you're getting rid of old stuff, you're putting in new stuff, it's not going to be a problem. But if you take that without a food, it's more harder on the body, or you might over-process it too quickly because you're really hungry, or a bit like alcohol, it's a sugar coming in, wow, let's go process this. And then they send it up to the brain because it's got sugar in it, and the brain says, what the hell's this? And then you end up drunk. So this fuels that you just put diesel in the petrol engine. What on earth are you putting into my brain? And so it starts malfunctioning, and that's what happens. So yeah, wow. I tell you what, a load of dopamine in the morning certainly set me up well. I'm on a high today. Woo! So I normalise my behaviour patterns back into a more masculine framework onto the brain. So yeah, it's interesting actually. You've got this like conscious construct in there. So all these characters are manifestations of me, and I'm like my own god in my own dimension. So yeah, let's go fly through this. But I'm in another dimension which I don't control. I can only influence, which can suck, but then it gives me a higher creativity and other abilities working against forms of resistance. So yeah, that's really good. I mean, it's the same with if you have aspirins. I mean, obviously, if you get things from your doctor, you follow the instructions there. I'm not going to get into any debates about that. However, you might want to change your eating window. Like if you're doing medication and you're doing OMAD, you might want to consider that pattern. You may want to have the meal closer to the drug window, whatever that might be. Or you might not be able to do an OMAD because you just don't qualify you know, your lifestyle doesn't, you're not there yet. Basically, it's a bit like you can't go on a long fast if you're dependent on certain drugs, and they work around your metabolism, because you'll just make yourself ill. Basically, you'll build up toxins in the body. It might flush out with the food and other issues around that, or it might dehydrate you, or it might take your ability of your body to process something well, and so it has a side effects that might be a lot worse. All sorts of things. So patterns of sensitivity. You have food sensitivity all the time. See, most people break things up and think, oh yeah, that happens because you fasted. That happens anyway. It's just more apparent if you do fast, because you've kind of changed, you stretched out that window a bit and you can see the effects of it more. But otherwise you wouldn't normally, because it's probably very short-lived, because your biorhythms are all over the place, stress levels, cortisol, all these kinds of things, because they go up when you eat as well. There's something else I noticed today, is I eating something, and I had to work with my hands, and I had to, on a client, and he's saying, your hands are cold, and the thing is, I touched some cold water. I realised that would have acted as a shock to my nervous system, and as a result, my body's treating it like shock. I feel quite warm in the core, but my extremities have gone colder to preserve heat. I'm not going to want to lose heat, and also with cold therapy, that probably increases that effect as well. Is that I ramp up the core temperature in the blood vessels, because if I give out too much heat, I'm going to shiver, because I go into kind of a crisis mode. And the kind of crisis stress, you only go into a very short period. It's a point where you fail. Oh, let's get out of here. It's a bit like you wouldn't lift a weight if your arm's going to collapse underneath it. Otherwise, what happens is you tear your ligaments out. Jesus, you can be that close. Anything else? Also, I think I'm going to buy antiques in the future. I go visit an antique shop. If you buy on eBay, it's a big risk what you pick up. But I had this weird green head. I've got shown in another video, and it claimed to be Egyptian. It's interesting. It's possibly a little older, or it hasn't been treated very well. Oh my god, that's very close to the curb. Because it's got some little fractures in the plaster, or it's like it's aged in some way. Because if you newly made it, you wouldn't have any marks, or if you made it from a mould. But you re-engineer it. I've got some weird experiments to do with rife. I've ordered a bat in resin, and I'm going to use that in the rife frequency. So it's a bit like Morbius, you know, stuff to do with Spider-Man. I don't know if you've ever seen the trailer. But so I'm going to use the rife frequency for a bat and my DNA, and what's going to do is coalesce the frequencies. Anyway, this is Pigsy signing off, and I will speak to you